The iPhone 18 Pro could be coming with a price that sounds insane on paper, $1,399 as a starting point. That's not a small increase. That's the kind of number that would spark panic for most smartphone brands, trigger discounts before launch, and force executives to rethink strategy on earnings calls. But Apple isn't most smartphone brands, and that's exactly why a $1,399 iPhone 18 Pro price might not just happen, it might actually work. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about the smartphone market in 2026. Apple doesn't need everyone to buy an iPhone. Apple just needs the right people to keep buying iPhones. And the data says Apple owns that crowd. Let's zoom out for a second. In overall smartphone shipments for 2025, Apple and Samsung were close. Apple shipped around 247 million phones, Samsung around 241 million. On the surface, that looks like a neck-and-neck race. But the moment you look at premium phones, the segment that actually prints money, the story changes completely. Apple dominates the premium smartphone category so hard that it's almost unfair. In phones priced at $600 and above, Apple shipped roughly 220 million units, while Samsung was down around 60 million. That gives Apple about 2/3 of the premium market, which is wild when you realize how many Android brands exist globally. And the higher the price goes, the more the market turns into Apple's playground. At $1,000 and above, iPhones reportedly account for roughly 3/4 of all smartphone sales. That means Samsung, Huawei, and Google are fighting over what's left. Basically the scraps of a segment Apple has trained consumers to associate with the best phone you can buy. So if the iPhone 18 Pro starts at $1,399, Apple isn't betting on the average buyer. Apple is betting on the premium buyer who already lives in Apple's ecosystem, already upgrades regularly, already finances their phone, and already considers the Pro model the default. That's why the number sounds shocking. But the strategy doesn't, and it gets even more obvious when you look at profits. Apple is not just winning unit sales at the high end, it's capturing the majority of the industry's money. Reports show Apple takes around 66% of the entire smartphone industry's gross profit. Samsung sits far behind around 12%, and Xiaomi is down near 2%. Think about that. 2 out of every $3 of profit in the smartphone industry. Apple. So when people ask, who would pay $1,399 for an iPhone 18 Pro? The answer is, the same market that already made Apple the most profitable phone company in history. And Apple has proof that demand holds up. Recent iPhone generations routinely dominate bestseller charts, with multiple iPhone models taking top spots quarter after quarter. Even older models still show up high on rankings because Apple has something other brands struggle to replicate: long-term value, long-term software support, strong resale, and the perception that an iPhone is the safe premium purchase. Now let's address the explanation Apple is likely to use, because you can already see the narrative forming. Tim Cook has recently pointed to rising memory costs as a key reason prices may need to go up. And to be fair, component costs do matter, especially if Apple is pushing higher base storage, more RAM, more advanced on-device AI features, and more powerful camera pipelines that demand faster memory. But here's the part people need to understand. Cost pressures may be real, yet pricing is always strategic. Apple doesn't set iPhone pricing by calculating parts and adding a margin. Apple prices iPhones based on what the market will tolerate, what competitors can't match, and what strengthens the entire lineup. A $1,399 iPhone 18 Pro price does more than raise revenue per unit. It also makes the next model down look reasonable. It pushes more buyers into Apple's financing plans. It increases the value perception of the brand. And it turns the Pro line into a luxury tier without Apple ever having to say the word luxury. Meanwhile, rivals like Samsung can't play the exact same game. Yes, Samsung sells premium phones. Yes, Samsung has foldables. Yes, Samsung can charge flagship prices. But Samsung doesn't own the 1,000 pluser segment the way Apple does, and it doesn't capture the same profit share. If Samsung pushes prices too far, it risks losing buyers who will simply choose a different Android brand or wait for a discount, because Android buyers usually have more alternatives inside the same ecosystem. Apple. Buyers don't, not really. If you're deep into iMessage, FaceTime, AirDrop, Apple Watch, Mac, iPad, iCloud, and the whole Apple services stack, switching isn't just switching phones. It's switching your digital life. That ecosystem lock-in phrase gets thrown around a lot, but the real result is simple. Apple can raise prices and still keep demand surprisingly stable. And here's where this leak becomes even more interesting. The overall smartphone market is expected to shrink. If current projections hold, smartphone shipments could drop significantly from 2025 to 2026, potentially from around 1.26 billion units down to about 1.09 billion. That's a major decline, driven by higher prices across the industry, slower upgrade cycles, and consumers holding onto devices longer, so you might assume premium phones would decline too. But the premium segment is expected to do the opposite. Even while the broader market slows down, premium smartphone sales are estimated to rise, something like a 3.5% increase year over year, from around 361 million to 374 million units. In other words, the market is splitting into two realities at the same time. The mass market is getting squeezed, the high end is getting stronger, and Apple is the high end. So if Apple launches a $1,399 iPhone 18 Pro in a year when overall shipments fall but premium grows, Apple is positioned to win even if fewer phones are sold globally, because Apple doesn't need to win volume to win the industry. Apple needs to win profit, and it already does. Now let's talk about the real question. Will people actually accept a $300 price hike? The hardcore Apple faithful probably will. Many won't even blink, because the pro buyer is already trained to expect the top-tier model to cost what a laptop used to cost. Also, in many countries, most people don't feel the full price on day one. They see a monthly payment, a trade-in credit, and a carrier deal. Apple understands that psychology better than anyone. But here's the part that makes this price leak feel like a warning sign, not just a headline. The $1,399 iPhone 18 Pro makes sense. And that's the problem. Because pricing power is not infinite. Apple can keep pushing higher as long as its products feel ahead. Its features feel exclusive, and its Pro label still means something undeniably superior. The moment the Pro iPhone feels like an incremental update, just slightly better camera, slightly faster chip, people start asking harder questions. And Apple is entering a risky zone right now with two big pressure points that casual buyers absolutely notice: AI and foldables. Apple has been slower than competitors in rolling out truly competitive, consumer-facing AI. People see what ChatGPT can do. They see what Google is building into Android. They see Samsung pushing AI features hard in marketing. And even if Apple eventually delivers a more private, more integrated AI experience, delays can damage perception, especially if you're charging $1,399. Then there's foldables. Apple still isn't in the foldable market. And while many people don't care about foldables today, the existence of foldables creates a perception problem at the high end. When you're charging ultra-premium prices, buyers expect you to be at the cutting edge of what's possible. So if a consumer walks into a store and sees a foldable Samsung or a futuristic Android flagship, then looks at a traditional slab iPhone with a $1,399 price tag, Apple needs to deliver enough wow elsewhere to justify why its version is still the one to buy. That wow can be camera leadership, video dominance, performance, battery, ecosystem, build quality, longevity, and resale value. Apple can win on experience instead of novelty. But the higher the price goes, the less forgiving the market becomes. And this is where the iPhone 18 Pro generation could become a turning point. Not because Apple will suddenly lose its loyal base, but because casual premium buyers, the ones who upgrade every few years, not every year, may finally start setting a hard ceiling on what they'll pay. When the number goes from expensive to ridiculous, even people who love iPhones start asking, should I buy last year's model instead? Should I buy the non-Pro? Should I wait for discounts? Should I keep my current phone another year? Apple knows that too, which is why a price increase usually comes with a lineup strategy designed to absorb the shock. If the iPhone 18 Pro starts at $1,399, watch for Apple to do some combination of these moves. Push trade-in offers aggressively to reduce sticker shock. Make the iPhone 18 and iPhone 18 Plus look like the smart buy, increase base storage on Pro models. So the price feels justified. Gate the best camera or AI features behind the Pro tier to force upgrades. Position the iPhone 18 Pro as the only model that's truly future-proof. Because Apple doesn't just sell a phone. Apple sells reassurance. This is the phone that will stay fast, stay supported, stay valuable. and keep working with everything else you own, and that's ultimately why this $1,399 iPhone 18 Pro leak is believable. Apple has the most control over the premium smartphone market. Apple sells to the wealthiest phone buyers. Apple owns the 1,000 pluckers segment. Apple captures most of the industry profit. And even when overall smartphone shipments decline, the premium category is still expected to grow. So the bigger question isn't, can Apple charge $1,399 for the iPhone 18 Pro? The question is, how long can Apple keep raising prices without giving people a reason to walk away? Because if Apple wants consumers to accept the most expensive mainstream iPhone pricing ever, it has to deliver the kind of upgrade that feels undeniable, especially in AI, especially in innovation, and especially in what Pro truly means in 2026. If the iPhone 18 Pro is genuinely a leap forward, Apple will sell a ton of them. If it's just another iteration with a bigger price tag, this might be the iPhone generation where even loyal users pause, hesitate, and start looking for alternatives inside Apple's own lineup. And that hesitation, more than the price itself, would be the real story.